Hey class, are you ready to think about arrays in functions? So how many ways can you use arrays in functions? Think about if we have a normal data type, we can pass it into a function as by value or by reference, right? But because this is an array, so there's two ways of passing in arrays. You can pass in an array as is, like the whole array, or you can pass just one element of the array. Another way to use arrays in function is you can return one element of an array from a function, but also you can pass the whole array or return a whole array from a function. So, and we can pass an element into a function by value of reference, which we talked about in module 6. But we also can do the same thing with an entire array by value or by reference as well. And that's what we are mainly going to talk about in this video. Returning an element of an array is pretty straightforward, and so I'm not going to demo here. Returning an array will be a little bit difficult to understand conceptually for now, so we will talk about it in another time. I'm going to do a demo which will have this 4 functions so that we can compare how they work. I hope that maybe you can also try to write functions like this also to help yourself to understand the concept better. So they go in the same order as the slides that I showed you previously. The first function will be pass one element into the function by value, such as this, right? It's just the data type and the variable or parameter name without the parentheses or ampersand actually, which we have by reference. When we pass by reference, we would use an ampersand. And then when we pass a whole array as a by value, we would actually use a const in front of the array, which the syntax is having the data type and then a parameter name with a square brackets. Also very important is we need to pass in the size of the array, because like we talked about in last video, the size of array is not known by the compiler, so you need to keep track of it. And when you do anything to the array inside this function, you have to keep track of where, which index of the array you are manipulating. So by reference, you just need to take out the const, and that is the difference. So if you compare, when it's by value, there's the keyword const when you declare the function. But when you call the function, for example, you can in the pass by element by value, you pass in just the value, so score 0 for example, into this function. And then when you pass the whole array, you actually just pass in the array name and the size of the array. Same thing for pass by reference. Like we saw before, we have to use an ampersand, and calling is actually exactly the same. For by reference, for a whole array, it is the same. Calling looks exactly the same like when we are using it by value. It's just when we declare it, we don't use the keyword const. So why is it so that when we pass in an integer, it's different from passing in the element of an array which is also constructed by different integers? the reason is that when we pass the value of score is actually a memory address of the first element of score, and so that's why it behaves differently. We will talk more about this when we talk about pointers and so on, but I think I hope to get you to start thinking why, understand why it's different. So let's go to the demo. This is exactly the same like I showed you before, the declaration of the 4 functions. What we are going to do is we will initiate the array called score with the value of index plus 10. So score 0 is 10, score 1 is 11, so on and so forth. And the array size is 5, and I put it in a constant because later on when we call these functions that we would need the size of the array, and so it's easier to do it this way. And since the size of an array never changes, so that's why I put it in a constant. The program is actually pretty simple. We just print out the array before and then call the function and print out after. So basically that's what we did for all 4 different functions. And you already seen how I was calling all these functions in the slides, but I can show you again. So you just put score 0 inside for the pass 1 element by value. Pass 1 element by reference is the same. I'm still using the score 0. Pass the array by value, the same. Just pass in the array name and then the size. Same for pass by reference. So let's see what each function does. The first function attempts to change the value of whatever is passed in, but it cannot because it's a by value, right? So it will happen within here. So if you see out a equals to a inside this function, it would. I think it's just a review of previous material. But the value of a outside of the function or that variable that got passed in will not change. By reference, it will change the value of score 0 because that's what we passed in. And then the third one, we just print out what's in here in the array because we don't expect it to be able to change anything. We will see what happens if we do, actually. And then by reference, we will see that we could actually change the value inside the array. We would add 10 to each element. So let's run the program. Let's start from the beginning. So when we pass 1 element by value, we try to attempt to change the value of score 0, but before and after it didn't change, right? By reference, before is 10, but because it's a pass by reference, when we change the value of that variable or the parameter into 21, it got changed to 21. Score 0 got changed to 21. Now passed by value of the whole array, we are just printing out what's inside. So it's before, inside, and after. They are all exactly the same. And then when we pass the array by reference and add 10 to each element, you can see that now 21 changed to 31. So score 0 have a value of 31 now. Score 1 has a value of 21 now. So play with this program is available. Another thing I want to show you is what if I try to change the value of the array element. So we are trying to minus 5 from each of the element. When we try to compile, you will see that there would be an error telling you that you cannot do this, and that's the function of basically having the const there that makes it happen in the parameter list. That's it for now. We would continue to talk about how to sort an array and using selection sort in the next video.